Alice was about to board the train that would take her to a crucial appointment when an unknown man warned her, "Don't go." Was this a warning for her to give up on the trip? The decision Alice made at that moment would bring unexpected consequences for the rest of her life. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Alice's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts as she watched the scenery pass by through the train window. It was her lawyer. "Alice, when will you arrive in the city? The settlement hearing is tomorrow. If you don't arrive in time to attend, it will indicate that you are giving up your claim and everything will be divided equally," the lawyer said with an urgent tone. Alice sighed deeply, feeling the weight of the situation on her shoulders. "I'm on my way. I'll be there in time," she replied, trying to sound confident. Upon hanging up the phone, Alice closed her eyes for a moment, allowing the memories of the past few months to flood her mind. The endless days and nights by her father's side in the hospital, the constant sound of the machines, the smell of antiseptic that seemed to permeate everything. She had dedicated every free minute to being by his side, holding his hand, reading his favourite books, simply being there. Meanwhile, her older brothers Charlie and Lauren barely showed up, always with excuses about work, unavoidable commitments, sick children. Alice understood that they had their own lives, but she couldn't help but feel a pang of resentment. After all, he was their father too. The train continued on its path, cutting through green fields and small towns. Alice watched absent-mindedly, lost in her thoughts. She didn't really need the inheritance money. Her career as an architect was taking off, and she had sufficient savings. But the idea that her brothers, who barely cared about their father in his final moments, would receive an equal share, it ate her up inside. Suddenly, a sharp jolt shook the carriage. The train slowed down until it came to a complete stop. A voice over the loudspeaker announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologise for the inconvenience. We are experiencing a technical issue and will need to stop for a few hours for repairs. We are in a small town along the way. Those who wish to do so may disembark and explore the area, but please stay attentive to announcements regarding the departure time." Alice hesitated for a moment, but decided that staying on the stationary train would only increase her anxiety. She grabbed her bag and stepped down onto the platform. This was one of those small towns that seemed straight out of a postcard. The cobblestone streets were lined with colourful houses, many with wooden balconies decorated with flowers. In the centre of the main square, an old fountain murmured softly, while elderly men played chess on stone tables under the shade of century-old trees. The air had a sweet aroma of jasmine mixed with the smell of fresh bread coming from a nearby bakery. Alice found herself smiling involuntarily, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced in months. Wandering aimlessly, she found herself in front of a charming cafe. The facade was a soft blue, with large windows that allowed a view of the cosy interior. A wooden sign announced, "Coffee and Music." As Alice entered, she was enveloped by a cosy atmosphere. Rustic wooden tables were scattered throughout the space, some occupied by people reading or talking softly. A gentle jazz music played in the background, creating a relaxing ambience. Alice approached the counter, where a young man stood with his back turned, arranging some cups. "Excuse me, could you serve me a coffee, please?" she asked. The young man turned around, and Alice felt her heart skip a beat. He was incredibly handsome, with deep green eyes that seemed to shine with their own light. His long dark hair was tied back in a casual bun, and a well-groomed beard framed a warm smile. "Of course it would be a pleasure," he responded in a soft voice. "Do you prefer an espresso, cappuccino, latte?" "A cappuccino, please," Alice replied, trying not to stare too much. "Great choice. Please make yourself comfortable. I'll bring it to your table," he said, gesturing towards the seating area. Alice chose a table near the window, from which she could observe the busy street. While waiting for her coffee, her phone rang again. It was her lawyer once more. Alice looked at the device for a long moment but decided not to answer. At that moment, she didn't want to think about the hearing, about her siblings, about the inheritance. Tears began to silently stream down her face before she realized it. They were tears of sadness, of frustration, of exhaustion. Tears for the father who had passed away, for the family that seemed to be falling apart. "Your cappuccino," said a gentle voice, pulling Alice out of her thoughts. It was the young barista, now looking at her with concern. "Is everything okay?" Alice quickly wiped away her tears, feeling embarrassed. Yes. Just a difficult day," she replied, forcing a smile. The young man hesitated for a moment, then said, "Look, I don't want to intrude, but if you want to talk, sometimes it helps to speak with a stranger. Oh, by the way, my name is Ethan." Alice looked at him, surprised by his kindness. Something in Ethan's sincere expression made her feel at ease. "Thank you, Ethan. I'm Alice," she replied. "Actually, I'm having quite a complicated day. My train broke down on the way to an important hearing." Ethan pulled out a chair and sat down. The cafe was quiet at that moment, allowing him to dedicate some time to the conversation. Alice found herself telling him about the train, about the hearing, and gradually about the whole situation with her brothers and her father's inheritance. "You know, it's not even about the money," Alice explained, fiddling absent-mindedly with her cup. "I have my career. I'm financially stable. But the idea of my brothers, who barely showed up when Dad was sick, just inheriting as if nothing happened, that makes me furious." Ethan listened attentively, his green eyes full of understanding. "It must have been very tough for you taking care of your father alone," he commented softly. "It was," Alice admitted. "There were moments when I felt so alone, abandoned, like the weight of the entire world was on my shoulders." As she spoke, Alice realized that it was the first time she had expressed these feelings out loud. It was as if a weight was being lifted off her chest. Ethan and Alice continued talking for a long time. He shared how he inherited the coffee shop from his grandfather, his dreams of expanding the business, his passion for jazz and literature. Alice talked about her work as an architect, her favourite projects, her plans for the future. The conversation flowed naturally, punctuated by laughter and moments of comfortable silence. Alice found herself admiring the way Ethan's eyes lit up when he spoke about something he was passionate about, or how his smile seemed to warm the whole room. For a few hours, Alice completely forgot about her problems. It was as if the outside world had disappeared, and all that existed was that moment, that cosy coffee shop, and the pleasant company of Ethan. When Alice looked at the clock, she was surprised to see how much time had passed. "Oh my God! The train must be about to leave!" she exclaimed, standing up hurriedly. Ethan also stood up, a look of disappointment crossing his face. "It's a shame you have to go," he said softly. Alice hesitated for a moment, feeling an inexplicable connection with this man she had met just a few hours ago. I also wish I could stay longer," she admitted. Ethan accompanied her to the door of the cafe. Before Alice left, he gently touched her arm. "Alice," he said, his voice serious, "can I give you some advice?" Alice nodded, curious. "Don't go," Ethan simply said. Seeing the surprise on Alice's face, he continued, "I once heard that the one who cannot forgive others destroys the bridge they have to cross. Don't destroy the bridge that will take you back to a relationship with your siblings." Ethan's words hit Alice like a lightning bolt. She stood there, frozen in the doorway of the cafe, as a storm of emotions and thoughts swirled through her mind. I have to go," she finally said, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank you for everything, Ethan." Alice walked quickly towards the station, Ethan's words echoing in her mind. Upon reaching the platform, she saw that the passengers were already boarding. She took a step towards the train, then stopped. The memories of happy moments with her siblings flooded her mind. The birthdays celebrated together, the childish fights followed by reconciliations, the mutual support in difficult times. Was she really willing to throw all that away? With her heart racing, Alice made a decision. She turned around and ran back to the cafe, arriving breathless at the door. Ethan was cleaning a table when he saw her enter. His face lit up with a smile. "Do you know where there is an inn where I can spend the night?" Alice asked, a timid smile on her lips. Ethan's smile widened. "I think I can help with that," he replied. In the days that followed, Alice discovered a peace she hadn't felt in a long time. The small town was a charming place, with its always lively central square, cosy cafes, and friendly people who seemed to have all the time in the world for a good conversation. She and Ethan spent a lot of time together. He took her to see the most beautiful corners of the town, shared stories about the local residents, and introduced her to his family. Alice was surprised at how easily she felt comfortable with Ethan, as if she had known him for years and not just a few days. During these days, Alice also reflected deeply on her situation. Away from the pressure of the audience and the stress of the big city, she was able to see things from a new perspective. She realized that her anger towards her siblings was poisoning not only her relationship with them, but also her own peace of mind. On a sunny afternoon, sitting with Ethan by a stream on the outskirts of town, Alice made a decision. "I think it's time for me to call my siblings," she said softly. Ethan squeezed her hand gently, offering silent support. The conversation with Charlie and Lauren was not easy. There were tears, accusations, and apologies. But in the end, there was also a sense of relief, a weight lifted off everyone's shoulders. "Can we meet?" Alice asked hesitantly. I would like to talk in person." It was agreed that Charlie and Lauren would come to the small town the following weekend. Alice was nervous, but Ethan was by her side, a comforting and encouraging presence. The meeting took place in Ethan's cafe. When Alice saw her siblings walking through the door, she felt a lump in her throat. They looked so different from what she remembered. Older, more tired, carrying their own burdens. The first moments were tense, filled with uncomfortable silences and hesitant glances. But gradually, the barriers began to fall. They talked about their father, about the difficult last few months, about regrets and longings. "I'm very sorry for not being more present," Charlie said, his voice choked with emotion. I didn't know how to cope with the idea of losing Dad. It was easier to distance myself." "I apologise as well," Lauren added. "You shouldn't have had to bear all that weight alone, Alice." Alice felt tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry too," she said, "for holding on to so much anger, for not understanding that everyone deals with pain differently." In that moment, something changed. It was as if a fog had lifted, allowing them to see each other clearly for the first time in a long while. There were hugs, more tears, but this time they were tears of relief, of reconciliation. They spent the rest of the day together, reminiscing about their father, laughing at childhood memories, and reconnecting as siblings. Alice introduced Ethan, who was warmly welcomed by Charlie and Lauren. When it came time for her siblings to leave, Alice felt at peace. The bitterness she had carried for so long had dissipated, replaced by a feeling of gratitude and renewed love for her family. That night, sitting with Ethan on the inn's porch watching the sunset, Alice reflected on everything that had happened. "You know," she said, leaning on Ethan's shoulder, "when my train broke down and I stopped in this town, I thought it was the worst day of my life. But now I realise it was one of the best." Ethan smiled, gently kissing the top of her head. "Sometimes unexpected detours lead us exactly where we need to be." Alice nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. She had arrived in that town burdened with sorrow and resentment, but she was leaving with a light heart full of hope. And beside her was Ethan, a man she had barely known for a week, yet he had already become such an important part of her life. The future was uncertain, But Alice was no longer afraid. She knew that, come what may, she had regained something precious, her family. And maybe, just maybe, she had found something new and wonderful too. As the stars began to dot the sky, Alice made a silent promise to herself. She would keep her heart open, nurture forgiveness, and never again allow bitterness to drive her away from those she loved. For as Ethan had said, forgiveness was the bridge that would lead her back to love and happiness. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.